And so we've had that experience before. And so there are folks who are listeners. I mean, I'm one of them who's very comfortable sitting with someone who is having an extraordinary experience. And I'm just going to sit with you, and I'm going to treat you with dignity, and I'm going to allow you to do what you need to do. And if that means you need to rip pages out of a book, rip pages out of a book. Like, this is harming no one. Right? But so often folks observe those kind of behaviors, which they label as scary or dangerous, and then they go into panic mode and try to shut down the behavior, or shut down a person as being loud. I mean, you can think of lots of examples of that. And so we've taught de-escalation before. We talk about slowing down. We talk about pausing. We talk about figuring out how to connect with the person and treat them with dignity. And something happens when we do that, when we do those things, instead of us trying to force and impose our will of what we think reality is, or how they should be acting, or that they're in an emergency, because that other person might not even identify. They might say, I'm not in an emergency. I'm not in a crisis. So trying to then say, yes, you are in crisis, and now I'm going to, call the crisis line on you. Without that collaboration.
That's Karen Iverson-Riggers of the Community Living Room in Appleton. Isolation has become a public health crisis. So much of our interaction with others is through a screen, often through text alone. We're all mostly living in our bubbles, their bounds defined through social media algorithms and our choice of news. None of that is optimal, and that's just for folks who are living relatively functional lives. For those on the margins, the crisis is intensified. Those recently widowed, people with mental health issues, the unhoused, the quietly grieving, or those just intensely lonely people who no longer know how to reach out to others. We seem to have forgotten what it means to really listen to another person, to witness their reality, to do so without offering judgment or advice they aren't asking for, which often undercuts the simple human connection they might be seeking. We talked to two women who wanted to offer something different, something more emotionally fulfilling. Iverson-Riggers and Lynn McLaughlin opened the Community Living Room in downtown Appleton last year. The previous 2 years, they held pop-ups around the community, offering folks a safe place to be or a person to hear them. The Community Living Room fills a lot of needs: forestalling a mental health crisis, offering food and water to those in need, or just a non-judgmental, non-transactional set of ears to hear the truth they need to convey. Others might just need a haven from a world they struggle to feel a part of. Community Living Room offers connection without judgment. It's an airy, welcoming, and comfortable space, an actual living room, really, for anyone to inhabit, without expectations. It's a space for unconditional connection. The Community Living Room is designed as a non-transactional, judgment-free zone where anyone can simply exist. It's about an empathy-centered approach. The space is staffed by trained listeners who prioritize empathy and deep listening over providing solutions. Connection is prevention is the motto. And this is founded on the belief that human connection can be a powerful preventative measure for mental health crises. The Community Living Room offers a safe alternative to traditional emergency services.
To me, what I see happening right now in our community, in our state, in our country, and it's important to resist and fight
Right.
Like that, I'm not saying that's not important. It is important. But if we don't have an alternative, if we don't say like this could be different and here's what's different, let's try this, like we're missing the whole thing. It's not enough just to resist and fight. There has to be a saying of there can be a different way. Let me show you.
Mm-hmm.
Like we could have a different kind of community and city. Let me show you. And to me, that's been the revolutionary part. Like we had this dreaming and imagining of this space and this concept, and we knew it would work. We knew it would work because we've experienced spaces like this in fleeting moments of time, mm-hmm. right? That are, just as you said, without the preconditions, without a lot of other stuff. Like you have to engage in this certain way or be this certain way. And so for me, it's just like a huge like dose of hope. Like this is possible. Another way is possible. Like, but we have to be brave to imagine it, mm-hmm. and we have to be brave to really like act on it and in it.
Mm-hmm. And hold it.
And it's work and it's hard, and this is the hardest and most rewarding work I've ever done, because of that very fact, because it is different.
Yeah. And
so every situation that comes up, like I will have this instinct from, my 20 plus years of nonprofit experience, some of which was running a 24/7 crisis facility. I have this instinct to respond in a certain way, this way I've been conditioned to respond, and a lot of it is out of fear. Mm-hmm. And then I step back and I reground and I call Lynn.
Human connection in 2025 has never been a more valued or less accessible commodity. Whether it is the safety and isolation of social media, or the tyranny of entertainment choices at our fingertips, or the distress and helplessness so many feel over the state of the country and of the world, we seem to be a nation in emotional crisis. Then, too, is the human condition itself, and the many ways we are conditioned through culture, upbringing, or social interaction to fiercely protect ourselves. Toss in, for many people, economic stress, mental health issues, a sense of lostness over futures they don't feel they control, or the strain of living as a member of a marginalized, ever more vulnerable community, and the crisis is magnified. The community living room in downtown Appleton seeks to offer a zone of comfort for all those people and everyone else. In concept, the community living room sounds almost utopian in its ideals of unconditional and non-transactional acceptance of anyone who walks through their doors on the first floor of the new Rise affordable housing complex on West Harris. One of the ways this is revolutionary is it's centered on empathy and human emotion in a way where these listeners connect and listen, right? If you're sad, be sad. If you're angry, they're going to hold space for you to be angry as much as you need to. And they're not going to say you're overreacting or you need to get over it, which are common responses people receive. Quite simply, the community living room is an airy, welcoming, and comfortable space. An actual living room, really, for anyone to inhabit without expectations. Some stop by for a bite to eat or a bottle of water on a hot day. Some simply to sit and play the guitar. Some to work a jigsaw puzzle arranged on a large coffee table. Some to read a book, and others still to have a conversation with one of the trained listeners on hand who will listen and accept without judgment. Some might be in crisis, and over time come to trust the community living room as a truly safe space that asks nothing of them but their presence. The idea is not to fix anyone, but simply hold space for them. The only outcome we are measuring is connection, says Iverson Riggers, whose career is in mental health. For that connection to take place, the listeners, and the community living room has 21 paid listeners, must bring their own authentic selves through the doors. Author Brene Brown has a quote that says something like, "You can only connect to others to the extent you're connected with yourself," Iverson Riggers says. So when folks show up here to listen, you don't have to check yourself at the door. So if you, as one of our listeners, are having a rough day, you can show up and it's a rough day. Or if you have something going on in your life, you can talk about it as a listener. Most other spaces in community where folks are providing support, you have to put on this mask and there's this boundary and you can't show up with your full humanity. Lynn McLaughlin, the other co-founder of Ebb and Flow Connections, says that vulnerability is the key to the connections they're making, placing the listener and the person walking through the door on equal footing. Among the values listed on a poster adorning one wall is mutuality. We are all equally human, McLaughlin stresses. And so that means I'm the expert in my life and you're the expert in your life. So we don't need to fix each other. We just need to be present with each other and respect each other as equally human. Connection is prevention. The idea for Community Living Room was hatched about 7 years ago. Iverson Riggers and McLaughlin were discussing the insufficiencies of community mental health. Iverson Riggers' background is in mental health advocacy, and McLaughlin's is in substance abuse and recovery. A lot of times what we see happen to people in crisis is you call a crisis hotline or 911 and a police officer shows up at your door, Iverson Riggers says. And you get handcuffed and taken to a hospital where you're triaged as the least urgent, even if you're having thoughts of a suicide. So it's not uncommon for people to wait 12, 14 hours to see somebody, and that's just not okay. Iverson Riggers and McLaughlin thought that these people should be met with compassion first, that they should be listened to and provided agency. Their organization's tagline is, "Connection is prevention." And the community living room model is built around that belief. Both McLaughlin and Iverson Riggers were introduced to emotional CPR over 10 years ago and serve as lead trainers for the state of Wisconsin. Building capacity of people trained in the values-based framework centered in emotions and deep listening created a new type of support and connection. ECPR is an international discipline licensed by the National Empowerment Center. Iverson Riggers says ECPR grew out of a variety of disciplines and traditions. To date, over 2,500 folks have received the ECPR training. All of Community Living Room's paid listeners receive it. In 2021, the two women reached out to the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley. They received a grant and began developing relationships with stakeholders around the community who loved their idea. Until they were gifted the space, they've been in since last October through their relationship with Pillars and the Rise developers. They held pop-ups around the area, libraries, nonprofits, the Building for Kids. They would bring in food and invite people to drop in. The pop-ups were a big hit. People saw that this is filling a huge gap that we have in our continuum of services in the community, primarily as a Tier 1 prevention strategy, McLaughlin says. Maybe you're just starting to struggle, or life has handed you a number of challenges. You might not be in crisis, but where do you go? You might not need full therapy. You just need somebody to listen and to be there. The Community Living Room is open for 5 hours, 2 days a week, and also holds a monthly Alternatives to Suicide support group. McLaughlin says so much of what they do is simply let people know they matter. They do that not by minimizing people's feelings or pain, by not trying to talk them out of those feelings, and by not trying to fix them. When you're attempting to share something that's emotional and you feel the other person's diminishing it, you stop sharing, McLaughlin says. There is so much harm done by not witnessing people where they're at. Saying things like, look on the bright side, or it's not that bad, instead of, I see where you're at, and that must be really hard right now. How are you going to get through the day? Or, McLaughlin says, citing an example that impacted her deeply, just creating space for people. There was someone who came in, obviously in distress. They grabbed a blanket, wrapped up in it, and they were just very closed. I asked if they needed a beverage, and they didn't say anything. An hour later, the blanket came off, and the tears came, and the anger came, and they expressed everything they needed to express. An hour after that, they're doing the puzzle, playing games, and laughing. In the fourth hour, they fell asleep. Oh my gosh, on the couch with the blanket. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I have to feel really, really safe to be able to fall asleep in public. It touched me so deeply, watching in 5 hours' time that evolution, and then I had to wake them up. And that crisis of walking through the door, whatever that was, no longer weighed them down by the time they left. And there are so many stories like that.
We have one person that comes in and plays the guitar. They love to play guitar, but at home they don't get applause, and here they get applause when they come in and play guitar. It is just, I love the love that is here. Because it goes in every direction, and it's so relational. It's not, you come in, get supported, and leave. Like, we have relationships with the people that come in, and they have the friendships that have been developed here between the people that come in, and then they support one another. Like, we have a couple that, you know, when one has to go to the doctor and isn't able to drive, the other one will take them. Like, they never would have come to that had this space not been here. You know, and those kind of ripples, we don't even know all the ripples. And that's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Among the people who come into the community living room are the unhoused, who are just seeking a brief respite, some food or a bottle of water, the lonely, those who are struggling with mental health or life issues, or those who simply enjoy and feel safe in the space. As McLaughlin puts it, all human beings that have a heartbeat and are breathing are welcome. There is, of course, initial suspicion or puzzlement among people who first come through the doors. Who are you? Or what is this? They ask. It's understandable in a society that rarely meets people where they are, without judgment, without expectation, and without trying to fix them. McLaughlin says another of her favorite stories regards a person who came in several times, would get a snack or something to drink, but would never talk. One day he came in and said, "I just want to say thank you for creating this space where I feel so welcome." Logistical questions might understandably arise among the uninitiated. What if someone comes in who's disruptive? What if someone really is in a mental health crisis and might represent a danger to themselves or others? How do you create and maintain a cohesive environment when more than a dozen disparate people inhabit the space at the same time? Iverson Riggers says she gets that question a lot and leans into the values of the community living room to provide guidance on individual situations that arise. She adds that seeking outside help is always a last resort and has never been required. I'm going to sit with them and figure out together what they want and what they would find helpful, she says. In other support structures, Help is oftentimes not helpful and is dictated without any choice or agency by the individual. We ask them, how are you going to get through today? Yeah, and then what's the plan for tomorrow? And how might we be supportive? We're grounded in this kind of framework of values and trust in those values, she adds.
Usually one or the other of us is here with another listener. Yeah. But that, as this grows and expands, as more people are like, I want that in our community, Karen and I are being tapped in other directions, and more of the co-op members are coming in. But it would be really hard to give it up. I love this space is my lifeblood.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I love that I can show up exactly as I am.
Yeah.
And I'm treated with love, respect, and dignity. And there's something about, it's so hard for people to ask for help. I think we all experience that, like, I'm going to be strong enough, I'm not going to ask for help. Mm-hmm. But we love to give. And as a giver, when people are able to give to me, I know how that feels because I'm a giver.
Yeah.
And that's like the best feeling ever. And it's so mutual in this space.
It's so mutual. I think like this story is one that really impacted me. So I'm very much a giver, and I am a person who, if you tell me that you're having surgery or you have a baby or someone in your family has died, I am going to bring you a casserole. Probably lasagna. Okay, the number of pans of lasagna I have made, it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And it brings me great joy. I love being able to do that for other people, right? So I think you know, I've had 2 surgeries, a ton of health stuff, and somebody who regularly comes to the living room, who has really limited means, who lives with a lot of chronic health conditions, made a pan of lasagna for me.
Yeah.
Like, I tear up every time I share that story and how meaningful that was.
Yeah.
Like, just, and that is the piece of the living room that we never could have imagined. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of this we imagined, but the way that community has been and is being built here is so powerful, and it's beyond our imagining, the way that people have taken ownership of this space.
Treating all people with dignity. If someone takes all the food, for example, Iverson Riggers and McLaughlin have a simple response. We'll get more food. Even people who come in exhibiting what many would label psychosis are treated without judgment. They say most folks push the panic button when people exhibit such behavior, but their experience, they insist, is that those folks are rarely a danger to themselves or others. And so instead of calling police or a crisis hotline, they sit with them and honor their experience. Folks who are in a crisis or experience a mental health crisis are actually much more likely to be victims of crime than perpetrators, Iverson Riggers says. I'm someone who's very comfortable sitting with someone who's having an extraordinary experience. And I'm just going to sit with you, and I'm going to treat you with dignity, and I'm going to allow you to do what you need to do. And if that means you need to rip pages out of a book, yeah, rip pages out of a book. It's harming no one. We've taught de-escalation before. Like, we talk about slowing down, we talk about pausing, we talk about figuring out how to connect with the person and treat them with dignity. And something happens when we do that. When we do those things, instead of us trying to force and impose our will on what we think reality is, community living rooms have popped up around the state, and more people around the state and the country have expressed keen interest in how to implement their own similar program. The Foundation for Social Connection, a national organization, has listed the community living room as an intervention source on their website. With all the requests Ebb and Flow Connections have received from around the state and the country about how to open their own community living rooms, Iverson Riggers and McLaughlin will hold a webinar on August 20th. Because we would love for this to be everywhere, McLaughlin says.
And there are so many stories like that.
So many stories like that, and we have people say regularly, like, they thank us for listening and just being here, and we'll say, you know, this act of really deeply listening and connecting with someone, it doesn't change anything about what's happened to that person or what's happening in their life. But something fundamentally changes. We have somebody, her name's Carolyn, who says that pain witnessed is pain transformed. And when we really deeply witness someone and don't try to fix it, just be with them in it, something, and I know this from my own experience, I've experienced this from other people holding space in that way for me, that something shifts. Something fundamentally changes. And so people will say things like, I feel lighter, like I feel like I can continue on with my day, I feel like I can get through this. And we're really, like, part of our values framework that we're very focused on listening and connection. It's not about action or doing or a plan. I mean, if somebody wanted to do that, we certainly would sit with them collaboratively to do that, but that's not ever a goal or an outcome or what we're really here to do.
With our country so divided, with deep face-to-face conversations seeming like something from a long time ago, with human interaction inaccessible to us, with the mental health crisis that often seems too big for our institutions, getting back to community on a micro level may offer us some small hope.
Yeah, those kind of stories and the impact that those stories have on a person's, like, dignity, knowing that they matter. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest pieces. And like Karen had mentioned, you're going through something and you try to, and this is my story, try to share it with someone and it's minimized or it's not that big of a deal, get over it. And then you try to share it again and it's, oh my God, think of blah, 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 and why don't you do this? And eventually you stop sharing what you're going through and it builds and, cycles, and there's so much harm that's done by not witnessing people where they're at. And witnessing pain, we're so quick to jump to, it's not that bad, look at the bright side, be grateful, instead of, I see where you're at and that's really hard right now.